$160,000 a year. No college degree required. Sign-on bonuses pushing $25,000. And still, nobody wants the job. Across America, railroads are running ads, posting billboards, practically begging for locomotive engineers, while 5,000 of them have quietly walked away in the last decade. This is not a story about money. The pay has never been higher. This is a story about an industry that is slowly breaking from the inside and what it is hiding behind every paycheck it offers. Across highways, overpasses, and even small-town bus stops, recruitment ads promise a life-changing sum, $160,000 a year, sometimes more, for those willing to climb into the cab of a freight locomotive. Railroads splash six-figure numbers on billboards, and they dangle sign-on bonuses as high as $25,000, hoping to fill empty seats that once drew lines of eager applicants. The pitch is simple: no college degree, no mountain of debt, just steady hands and a willingness to work. In a country where blue-collar jobs rarely offer this kind of pay, it should be an easy sell. But the numbers tell a different story. The Association of American Railroads reports total compensation for engineers routinely falls between $135,000 and $190,000, averaging around $160,000 when you count health insurance, retirement, and overtime. Union Pacific, BNSF, and Norfolk Southern all advertise base salaries from $70,000 to $115,000, with averages climbing even higher in certain regions. Bonuses spike in the Midwest and Plains states: $15,000 for a new hire in Iowa, $20,000 in Nebraska, and up to $25,000 for targeted roles in Kansas City and Alliance. These are not empty promises. The cash is real, and the shortage is genuine too. Despite the flood of incentives, the Railroad Retirement Board logs hundreds of engineer jobs that sit open, unclaimed. Over the last decade, the workforce has shrunk by more than 10%. 5,000 engineers have left the rails behind since 2014. Railroads keep raising the offer, but the response is silence. The paradox is stark. The more money they promise, the fewer people show up. Something deeper is pushing workers away, a problem that cannot be solved by another bonus or a bigger paycheck. In the decades after World War II, the railroad engineer stood at the center of American working-class pride. Family albums from places like Columbia, South Carolina, show fathers and sons in crisp uniforms, sometimes 3 generations in a single frame. The job was more than a paycheck, it was a legacy passed down like a cherished watch. Helen Kronrad Copeland remembers her father Oscar teaching her the difference between a steam whistle and a diesel horn, a skill as respected as any trade in town. Engineers built their lives around a promise few jobs could match: stability. Collective bargaining agreements from the 1940s guaranteed a defined benefit pension tied to years of service and final earnings, not the whims of the market. Seniority rights meant a veteran could count on the best routes, the safest shifts, and after 25 years, a month of paid vacation. Health and disability coverage were written into contracts, shielding families from sudden loss. Even in the face of economic downturns, engineers knew their place on the roster was protected by union clauses, not just company goodwill. The railroad was a place where ambition and loyalty paid off. Apprenticeship could last 5 years, but the reward was a career that spanned decades, with the chance to retire in dignity. For many, the railroad was not just a job, but an identity, woven into the fabric of small towns and big cities alike. The pride ran deep. Engineers were trusted with lives, freight, and the clockwork of a nation on the move. That sense of belonging, of being part of something lasting, is what is slipping away now, as the rules of the industry quietly change. The numbers on paper look straightforward, but the reality behind them is anything but. Data USA tracks a stark contraction, a 10.5% drop in the engineer workforce from 2014 to 2024. That is 5,000 fewer engineers running America's freight trains in just a decade. The chart curves downward, year after year, even as paychecks swell and bonuses climb. The promise of stability, once the backbone of railroading, now comes with a warning label. The industry's decline is not a rumor or a temporary dip. It is visible in every hiring report and vacancy chart. Hundreds of open positions remain posted month after month, with railroads cycling through sign-on incentives and relocation offers. Yet the seats stay empty. The workforce is not just shrinking, it is disappearing in slow motion, leaving behind a gap that no amount of cash seems able to fill. For those just entering the field, the warnings are loud and clear. A young engineer, freshly hired, describes the mood. They told me, "You will make good money, but you will never know when you are working. You will miss birthdays, holidays, everything." The old guarantees of seniority, a steady route, and a life you could plan around have been replaced by uncertainty. The story is no longer about pay. It is about what has changed inside the job itself. As the headcount falls, the mystery deepens. Why has a career that once offered so much become a path so many are choosing to leave behind? The answer lies beyond the numbers, somewhere in the day-to-day reality of life on call, where the next shift is always just a phone call away. Every engineer on the extra board lives in the grip of a rule that shapes every hour of their life, the 2-hour call. At any moment, day or night, the phone can ring. From that instant, the clock starts. 2 hours to get to the terminal, sign in, and climb into the cab, no matter if it is a holiday, a birthday, or the middle of a family dinner. Miss the call, and your name drops to the bottom of the seniority list. Miss again, and the job itself can slip away. This is not a rare emergency. It is the daily reality for most new hires. The extra board is the reserve pool, a floating roster that covers every gap left by vacations, sick days, or unplanned absences. Forum posts from working engineers describe the anxiety of living by the phone, never able to stray far from home or settle into a normal sleep. One engineer's wife writes, "We plan nothing. We wait." Sometimes the call comes at 2 in the morning. Sometimes it does not come at all. The 2-hour rule is written into contracts and enforced by dispatch. It is not just a guideline, it is a hard line. If you are not ready, you lose your shift and your place in line. For many, that means months stuck on the bottom rung, scraping for hours while the bills pile up. The unpredictability seeps into every corner of life. Kids learn not to expect dad at the school play. Spouses stop making dinner plans. Even sleep becomes a gamble, never knowing when the next call will come. The promise of a 6-figure paycheck fades against the reality of constant vigilance. Engineers on the extra board are always on, always waiting, never truly off duty. Over time, the pressure builds. Family life frays. Relationships buckle under the strain. The cost is not just measured in missed events, it is measured in exhaustion, tension, and a creeping sense that the job owns you, body and soul. A train engineer's life is ruled by more than just the relentless ring of the phone. Behind every shift, a hidden system keeps score. A points-based attendance policy that treats every absence, no matter the reason, as a strike against your record. On paper, it is simple. Start with a set number of points and lose them each time you miss work. In practice, it is a discipline machine that never sleeps. At BNSF, the high-vis policy allots 30 points to each engineer. Miss a shift for a doctor's appointment? Lose 2 points. Take a day for a funeral? Lose even more. If you are gone for several days, the penalty can reach 25 points in a single stretch. Points are not just docked for calling out sick, even approved time off chips away at your balance. The only way to regain ground is to be available, day after day, for weeks on end, earning back a handful of points for perfect attendance, never enough to erase the risk. Union Pacific's CAPS system works the same way with a 28-point threshold. Cross it, and a warning arrives. Cross it again within the next 2 years, and your job is gone. The rules are unforgiving. 2 violations, even if years apart, can end a career built over decades. The policy makes no distinction between a cold, a family emergency, or a genuine crisis. Every absence is a mark against you, tracked in rolling 90-day windows that reset the clock but never the pressure. Railroad executives defend these systems as necessary for reliability, pointing to the Association of American Railroads' claim that strict attendance is part of the job's high compensation. But union grievance records tell another story. Engineers forced to work while sick, afraid to take a single day off, living in constant fear of the next deduction. The point system does not just count days, it counts down to burnout, fueling a quiet revolt that would soon erupt over the issue of paid sick leave. The promise of stability is replaced by a sense that the railroad is always watching, always waiting to penalize the smallest slip. Precision-scheduled railroading, or PSR, arrived with the promise of efficiency. Longer trains, fewer stops, and a leaner workforce, these were the pillars that executives like Hunter Harrison said would save the industry. The Oliver Wyman analysis laid it out: maximize asset use, control costs, and reduce headcount wherever possible. In practice, this meant trains stretching 2 miles or more, and crew rosters shrinking by the hundreds. At CSX, engineer positions dropped by nearly 15% between 2014 and 2021. On paper, the numbers looked strong. Operating ratios improved. Investors applauded. But for the people running those trains, the equation was different. An operations manager at a major railroad defends the shift. He says we have to compete with trucks. He says we have to run lean. He says our crews are paid more than almost anyone in blue-collar America. Reliability is non-negotiable. The numbers back him up. Engineer compensation packages average $160,000, nearly 40% above the national median for similar jobs. Bonuses and overtime only push the figure higher. The logic is simple: high pay should buy high availability. But on the ground, union leaders see a system stretched past the breaking point. The Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen files grievances over forced overtime and the relentless pressure to show up, sick or not. PSR's efficiency drive collides with a workforce already battered by attendance points and 2-hour call windows. Schedules tighten. Rest shrinks. Engineers face a choice: work through illness or risk their jobs. The result is a workforce running on fumes, with burnout and safety concerns rising as crews get smaller and trains get longer. In late 2022, the standoff reached a breaking point. 3 major unions demanded guaranteed paid sick days, warning that the system was unsustainable. Federal mediators stepped in as the clock ticked down to a nationwide strike. 72 hours from a shutdown that could have cost the economy $100 billion, the White House brokered a temporary truce. Sick day credits were promised, but the deeper conflict between corporate efficiency and basic human limits remained unresolved. The near strike was a warning flare. The drive for efficiency had pushed the system to the edge, and the people inside it were the first to feel the strain. Night after night, engineers find themselves far from home, checked into motel rooms that blur together. Thin walls, buzzing lights, the constant hum of traffic outside. A suitcase becomes a dresser, a phone the only link to family. The promise of rest is always just out of reach. Schedules shift with the freight, and the call can come at any hour, snapping sleep in half. Engineers describe waking in strange towns, unsure which state they are in, running on coffee and habit. The fatigue is not just a feeling, it is a measurable weight. Federal Railroad Administration studies show that engineers routinely carry a sleep debt of more than 30 hours each week. That is the equivalent of losing an entire night's rest every week for months on end. Sleep scientists like Dr. David Dinges have tested engineers in controlled settings. The results are stark. After a week of unpredictable shifts, reaction times slow, memory slips, and judgment falters. Microsleeps, those brief lapses where the brain simply shuts down, become more common. The Federal Railroad Administration guidelines now require railroads to track fatigue risk, but the reality on the ground has not changed. The motel bed offers little comfort when the next call could come before dawn. Over time, the exhaustion seeps into everything: health, safety, even the will to keep going. For many, the isolation and chronic sleep loss are the final push out the door, a silent force emptying the ranks faster than any recruiter can fill them. The workforce behind America's freight trains is aging fast. The average engineer is now over 55, and union reports warn that nearly a third could retire within the next 5 years. Training schools, once filled with new recruits, are shrinking. Programs like the Cedar Rapids Training Center have closed their doors, citing low enrollment and budget cuts. Even among those who do sign up, almost a third leave within 2 years, worn down by the same demands that drive out veterans: burnout, family strain, and a schedule that never settles. The pipeline simply cannot keep up. While about 2,000 new engineers graduate each year, the wave of retirements outpaces them. The result is a slow-motion exodus, with more seats empty every month. Railroads scramble to fill the gap, but the numbers run in only one direction. The experience and steady hands that once anchored the system are slipping away, and there are not enough replacements to catch the slack. As the old guard leaves, a new threat looms. In recent months, the Federal Railroad Administration has approved pilot programs for autonomous train systems. Vendors like Wabtec and Parallel Systems are testing technology that could make one-person crews or even fully automated trains a reality. State legislatures in Ohio, Illinois, and Texas have all debated bills to allow trains with just a single human operator. For those thinking of a railroad career, the message is hard to miss. Spend years training for a job that might soon disappear. The uncertainty is as real as the fatigue. The promise of a stable, lifelong career is being replaced by the specter of obsolescence, and the talent pipeline is drying up before it can refill the ranks. Inside the nation's rail yards, the ripple from empty engineer seats travels far beyond the tracks. The Surface Transportation Board's own data tells the story in numbers that hit home. By mid-2023, the average container sat idle at terminals for more than 13 hours, up from just 8 hours in early 2021. That lost time is not just a headache for railroads. It means grocery store shelves restock more slowly, auto plants wait on parts, and manufacturers across the country scramble to adjust. Every extra hour a container sits translates to rising demurrage fees, sometimes $150 or more per box. Those costs move straight down the line to shippers and eventually to everyday prices at checkout. The reason for the logjam is simple but stubborn. Crew shortages, made worse by retirements and a shrinking pipeline of new hires, leave trains waiting for qualified engineers who never arrive. Federal rest rules require a 12-hour minimum layover between shifts. But with too few crews, trains often sit even longer, stacking up at major hubs from Chicago to Los Angeles. Retail giants like Walmart and major automakers have sounded the alarm, warning that rail delays threaten everything from seasonal inventory to assembly line uptime. The freight network that once promised speed and reliability now moves at the mercy of a labor gap that no bonus has been able to close. Behind every delayed shipment is a missing engineer, and behind each vacancy, a story of a job that pays well but demands more than most are willing to give. The supply chain feels every absence, yet the question lingers: If the backbone of American freight cannot fill its ranks, who pays the price when the trains stop running? A century ago, this was a job families handed down with pride. Today, even six-figure offers can't compete with exhaustion, lost time, and lives on hold. As the workforce shrinks by another 10%, the freight that powers America grows more fragile. The real question isn't who will drive the trains, but whether the industry will change before the tracks go empty. What do you think needs to happen next?